The Football Kickoff.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
All right. You're very welcome along to this week's episode of the Football Kickoff with Sky. As the lady said, all the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sports and Premier Sports. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. I'm delighted to welcome David Connolly and Phil Egan to the show this week. Gentlemen, it has been officially the craziest transfer window of all time. It is slammed shut and we await with bated breath, David, to see who the hell is going to play for Chelsea tonight. They've got 600 different teams that they can put out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen all the videos online of, 1,000 kids on a football pitch and that's Chelsea's squad and all this sort of stuff. There's plenty of mileage, isn't there? I think you can get out of sort of giving Chelsea a bit of stick. But yeah, I mean, they've submitted their Champions League squad. We don't know what that is yet, right? Do we? But I mean, there's going to be some big players that are not going to be in it. Probably for the first time in Graham Potter's career, he's got the luxury of having sort of 30, 40 players, 4 or 5 players for each position. I don't know how he's gonna manage it, but it's going to be a real test of his managerial ability. That's for sure.
I don't know what your interest in science fiction is, but it feels like we're living in some kind of weird alternative universe where the matrix is broken and something is belched out. And it's like, what would happen if we put all the players on one team? How good would they be, or how bad would they be?
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're an agent, it's a great time to be around, right? And have one of your players, because you've got an owner there that is desperate to put his mark on the football club. And that is where agents and players can clean up. I've been at a football club myself where, a player had done a deal at one club, more or less signed it, got a telephone call. The agent lied about how much he was offered. The next thing, he goes somewhere else for nearly double the money. I mean, if you're a player these days in the Premier League and you've got Chelsea sniffing around you, I mean, it's something else. The issue will be, right, all the money they've spent, have they strengthened in areas that they should have done? They still probably don't have a central striker, right, which is certainly an issue for them. So we'll see.
Yeah, and we're not quite sure about the quality of either of the 2 goalkeepers, unless, really quality coaching can turn Kepa into the keeper they thought they were getting, Phil?
Yeah, I think actually Mendy is the better keeper.
Okay.
But he's just actually going through a fairly rough patch at the moment. And I know he's been injured as well. And Graham Potter brought his coaching staff with him. Ben Roberts, the former Middlesbrough goalkeeper, is part of that staff. So, he'll get to work with these guys. In terms of, there's so many good players, but Graham Potter, this was always the worry when he became Chelsea manager, the pressure that he's under. Now he has to manage egos as well, which he wouldn't have had at Brighton, because he would have had players at Brighton that would not the same egos, but he would have had players at Brighton that would run through a wall because they know that Brighton was a club that could lead to something else for them.
Yeah. Definitely, it's a very different, people in a very different phase of their career. I do remember so much was made of Potter, David, that he has that master's in emotional intelligence, and he's going to need every single bit of it right now to try and keep the room, to control the room, to keep them believing that he's there for the long term. Now, he does have a long-term contract. That's the one thing. And Bowley has said, we're calm about this. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they're true to their word.
I mean, look, we've discussed on here numerous times the amount of times I've been to the Amex. I was there the other day for their game, and hugely impressive under Roberto De Zerbi. Things they're doing which are absolutely his. How they play with their 2 centre halves and their 2 centre mids. I haven't seen anything like that in a little while, to be honest. How they popped the ball short against Liverpool, worked it out wide. It was really good to see firsthand. So you had an idea of how they played. And he has brought on what Potter did. Now, if you look at what De Zerbi did with Trossard, he didn't mind making an enemy. He didn't mind making an enemy, banishing him away from selling him, and, they move on. And he said, it didn't end well, but we wish him all the best. Now, you never saw that under Graham Potter. Graham Potter wanted to keep a steady ship, even when Aaron Connolly wasn't involved. He didn't make, much. He tried to quietly sidle sort of Aaron to the side, and it was very, cleverly done that there was no real confrontation. But it seems like De Zerbi doesn't mind the confrontation. Now, Chelsea, he's going to have a lot of confrontation. You got all those players, and there's going to be 4 or 5 players not even in the Champions League squad that Fielder should have been, or Hakim Ziyech, who didn't move on. He's going to have completely different conversations that he never had at Brighton, and I think it's going to be tough to be adept as it was at Brighton. I think he's going to have a lot more confrontations at Chelsea, that's for sure.
He's got to hope that a number of injuries force his hand in certain positions that, otherwise,
that's training sessions, you could say, right, no rules, go in full-blooded, let's injure each other, make this a bit easier for myself. But even, they're obviously going to have to offload players. And they couldn't even do that the other night. They couldn't get rid of Hakim Ziyech to PSG. So
when you're reading it, right, the wrong documentation, they are denying all this, right? Yeah. But this reminded me of the fax machine and David De Gea. But it's like you're sending the wrong emails.
Hey, I've got a story on the fax machine. I'll tell you this, right? When I was in Holland and I was joining Feyenoord, I was in the offices of the club, right, and there was no one there. The next thing I heard it. The sound of the fax machine. So I sort of have a little look over, and coming through is an offer from an agent for a player that, and they had all the terms written down on the fax machine. I was thinking, oh, wow, here it is. And, there's no one here to pick it up. But, you laugh and joke, but these things do go on. There is no doubt.
Why was there nobody there?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not?
Good job. But, they do go on, right? So that Ziyech one is a disaster, because I'm sure Graham thinks, oh my God, that is another player now I've got to manage.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, when you saw the facts, were you like, hang on, I'm getting not paid enough here?
No, I was fine. I just found it quite incredible that there was, look, you do have a little look. You're going to see what's on the table. But I thought it was funny.
And did you then act as a third man intermediary here? Listen, I think I can get you twice what you're on at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. If only. Yeah, so I went back in and Michael Kennedy just got another couple of noughts on it.
Nice.
I'm only joking.
Well, but isn't it so bizarre that thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of euros and pounds are changing hands, and it's so unscientific?
Well, look, if we're talking Chelsea here, right, it would be very scientific. We've seen Sean Dyche talk this week about everyone's in the market for the same players. Well, to be honest, they're not. Not everyone. Everyone knows the players, but not everyone can pay 80, 100 million quid like they did to get, Fernandes over the line. There's not many. There's probably only two clubs that can operate in that market, right? Maybe Chelsea and Man City. I don't know. Maybe not even Man City would be. Well, they probably would with Grealish, yeah. So probably two clubs in the whole of the world that can pay that sort of money. It does make it a skewed market for those two. What you would say is then you bring those two in, you bring the others in, no one goes out. Difficult job. People say, how can it be a difficult job? But it would be with all those players. Well, it certainly would.
Every newspaper website in England has been going through potential teams, and it's impossible to know what formation they're going to use. But you're putting completely different players in the side, and the side is good. The side is good, but not great. Mm. There's a 4-3-3 that has Fernandes, Kovacic, and Mount in midfield, with Mudryk, Havertz, and Madueke on the right wing. But I presume João Felix will have to play in that side if he's not suspended. João Felix did sign for them. Then you've got Felix, Mudryk and Havertz up front in a 3-4-3 with Chilwell, Fernandes, Kovacic and James. Reece James obviously back, a big boost for them because their win record with him in the team versus their record without him is absolutely phenomenal. And then they've got Badiashile, Silva and Fofana. They still have Silva, who I think has turned 38 in the meantime. Yeah,
but he's still playing really well. His reading of the game is incredible. And even when a player on the other team who has unbelievable pace stands him up and you think this is going to, he just knows how to position himself that he's not going to get beaten, and he's notorious for clearing balls off the line as well because he just senses danger. So I would imagine he's going to get another deal.
There's a 4-2-3-1 as well where Mount is the 10 behind Havertz, and you're like, is Mason Mount good enough to get in this team at number 10? He might be.
Every manager picks him.
Yeah. Do you not think though it's such a disjointed thinking? If you go back to some of the players they did have, right? Madueke, okay, he's a really good talent, but Callum Hudson-Odoi arguably was the best talent in England that they'd seen for years, and he shipped out to Germany or whatever, and Tomori, could have been a centre half forward and might have saved them 30-40 million quid they spent on Badasele or whatever, and Abraham. You could, that's what you get at these sometimes at Chelsea. I guess it's probably an anomaly, right? That it operates in that way, because all the players they could have retained and tried to make players of, or think, well, they will come good eventually. They just seem to run out of patience and then blow the budget, and it's just like it's just ever decreasing circle for them. I don't know.
They still own Romelu Lukaku as well.
Yeah,
this
exactly,
is insane.
Yeah, there's your number 9.
Like, it's absolutely insane. It just doesn't make any sense,
Going to sign in Kunku.
He's arriving in the summer, right? Yeah. So they've spent the money, or certainly he's part of that. Okay, so they're playing Fulham tonight. Fulham is no gimme.
No, Fulham beat them a few weeks ago. Now, they've since lost a couple of games, Fulham, but they've only lost by the odd goal. And when you watch Fulham play, I think like the game they lost against Spurs, that was a really good goal from Harry Kane. Then you've the unfortunate one with Mitrovic, double hits his penalty, and then they concede to Isak at Newcastle. There's certain games, even when United won at Craven Cottage before the World Cup, it was a last minute or an injury time winner from Garnacho. Like, to beat Fulham, you have to play well. That's where Fulham are at now. Their levels are so good this season that you don't just turn up and beat Fulham. You actually have to play well. So this, it's not a gimme. Whereas a couple of years ago, Chelsea Fulham would have been a gimme. Fulham are going for the double. Never done it.
Never.
Chelsea.
Wow. Okay. Well, no better time to do it than when the Harlem Globetrotters stroll into town and aren't used to people taking them seriously and trying to beat them. Do you see anything other than a Chelsea win tonight, David?
I could see Fulham. Ironically, Willian scored in the last game, and they've certainly got, they've got really good players. Look, they were unlucky against Newcastle. I worked on that game. I thought they were excellent in a really late goal, but I thought they dug in. They did really well against a good team. So, they can more than go to Chelsea and be really solid, hard to beat. They're a really good team. Yeah, and I could see them getting something for sure.
This is one of those games casual football fans could have gone, that's going to be 2-0 or 3-1. I don't need to watch this. But now it's like, who are they going to pick?
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
Mudryk.
Do you remember him?
Mudryk could start. And, the little cameo had at Anfield.
He looked electric.
Yeah, he does have that.
Did you ever think about maybe like trying to find one of your teammates with the ball? Maybe that was just the first day out. He didn't know their names. He was like, are you allowed to shoot? I'm not sure. Well,
he was probably looking at them for the 60 odd minutes thinking, I'm going to have to do this myself.
Let's move on. Everton Arsenal. That game tonight is obviously 8 o'clock on Sky Sports. Everton Arsenal is 12:30 on BT Sport tomorrow. Then Newcastle West Ham is in the evening at 5:30 on Sky Sports. On Sunday, the two games are Forest against Leeds at 2 o'clock on Sky Sports, and the 4:30 kickoff on Sunday is Spurs versus City. Nice handy one. I was just saying before we came on air, David, that I'd read a great piece about Sean Dyche and all the changes he's made this week and the things that he said to them, and it's all the right stuff. And he's talking about shin pads and food and 360 reviews, and then the last line was, and they play Arsenal on Saturday. Like, oh, stinger, stinger.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw them, the image of them doing the bleep test, the dreaded bleep test, which is, I guess, who would expect anything less? New manager goes in, the first thing he does is say, you're not fit enough, and then runs the legs off you. So I thought that was, pretty telling. No kind of real surprise. Look, did they make the signings? No. Are they weaker after the window? Although Anthony Gordon, it looked like his time there was not going to be a success. That losing him means the one player short. Difficult game. I think it's all right having running around and all that, but they're up against Arsenal, who also run around. They are such a good team when you see them live. They work really, really hard. So they've got even more cover now with Jorginho coming in. So difficult game.
I think Arsenal quietly had maybe the best window. Like the chaos at Chelsea, maybe they've signed 5 world-class players who all go on to have incredible careers and win Champions Leagues and leagues with Chelsea, and that's possible. That's definitely in the field of outcomes. But with Arsenal, I felt like, okay, opportunistically, we're going to sign 2 really good players who are going to play. Maybe Jorginho doesn't play first team every week, but he's certainly going to play a lot of minutes.
Yeah. And if he does, he suits the way they play, and it's a real sliding doors moment because Mikel Arteta obviously played for Everton, There was talk that he was going to be the Everton manager. They went for Carlo Ancelotti, who did a pretty good job at Everton. Then obviously left to join Real Madrid. I mean, he couldn't turn it down. And Arsenal went with Arteta. But Arteta has been given time at Arsenal, and look how well it has worked out. Even today they've announced Martinelli has signed his new deal. Saka, Saliba, they're close to signing new deals. All the noise is gone now about other clubs trying to buy their best players, because Arsenal are the team on the up. But he certainly wouldn't have got the time at Everton. And also just the way Everton are at the moment, it's very hard for any manager, I think, to work on those conditions.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't sign any players, but they've signed a better manager. So I think Everton fans might be disappointed they didn't get players in, but I think getting Sean Dyche in instead of Frank Lampard makes them a better team.
Yeah, I would agree with that, David.
Yeah. I mean, I like Sean Dyche. I know some of his staff, Ian Wone and people, Tony Loughlin, who he's worked with a long time. I don't know if Tony's got in with him, but he was at Sunderland with Roy Keane. So, he's got his tried and trusted sort of staff in and around him. And look, he's a proven Premier League manager. But nonetheless, I think up against Arsenal side, who as we were just saying, top team. Trossard's come in, Jorginho's come in. They're even stronger. They're fit as a butcher's dog, and they're technically, incredible. So I can only see an Arsenal win there. And look, Everton has struggled. What they had, something like 6 defeats at home out of 10. I mean, so I can't see it changing, to be honest.
There is a world in which you can just put 11 men behind the ball and have a 0-0, and the atmosphere, there's going to be a sit-in protest after the game, but the atmosphere is on his side. I feel like they're so crying out for anybody with leadership that if he makes some of the right noises, there's a little window here for Dyche to turn this around, and then hopefully he gets the job whenever the club gets sold. He keeps the job whenever the club gets sold.
Yeah, and the strange thing, before I get on to Everton, about the Arsenal starting 11 tomorrow, I'd say at least 7 of that starting 11 will have played in that fixture last season when they got turned over by Everton. Rafa Benitez is Everton. And, there was that sense that Arsenal were still a little bit frail where you could get at them. But those questions have been answered this season. They're tough. And that's why it's very hard to make a case for Everton to win this game. But I suppose they just need to feel their way into it. They can't concede an early goal, or else it just takes the pain out of the atmosphere.
I think you're hoping for it's coming off someone's backside and just squeaking the wrong side of the post and a 0-0. That's their only hope of getting a point out of this game, right? They're not going to score and
you can't imagine them
and win.
No, you can't imagine them. Well, they won 2-1 last season. You can't see that happening. If are they going to produce some flowing football to create space against this Arsenal team who don't give you space and they just pen you in, the way you have Ben White and Zinchenko basically just making sure that opposition teams can't get out. Now, Everton won't mind going direct down the channels and try and get themselves up the pitch, but then even when they do get up the pitch, have they got enough quality to cause Arsenal problems? Maybe a set piece. That's kind of where you're looking at. But one thing you'll get is you should get 11 players out there that'll give 100%.
Yeah. David, here's a slight tangent philosophical question. The signings that Arsenal have made have been experienced Premier League players from teams who should consider themselves rivals, but maybe they didn't consider Arsenal rivals enough, or didn't think about it enough. But that's going to happen more as we see the other leagues around Europe. The Javier Tebas came out and said it was doping what was going on in the Premier League with the money, the equivalence of it. The big clubs are going to have to sell to each other because there's nobody else able to buy those players. When Chelsea are looking to offload those players, there's like PSG maybe, who obviously tried to get the itch, but there aren't that many other clubs around the world who will pay those wages. So
that's right.
Like, there's actually a window of opportunity for those teams between 3rd and 8th or 9th to be really, really clever, Oakland Raiders style, and buy some value and actually compete. It's not going to happen for very, very long, but there's just a tiny window there where you're going to get world-class players at a knockdown price you can't get in teams.
Well, I guess the only one of the parallels I could think of, because I left off when we were talking about clubs who could afford, I left off PSG earlier, but then Man City, Chelsea. But if you go back to probably Serie A would have been the league where they bought off one another more so than any other league I could think of. If you go back down the years, the amount of signings players would go from, I don't know, AC to Inter or Juve to whatever, the list is endless. Because they didn't really look outside their country that much, really, for a lot of those players. When they came over and did well, they'd buy from their competitors. So, yeah, I could probably see that. I could see that happening, And then if they do, surely they've got to change this loan system where a Premier League player's on loan or whatever goes to another team. He can't play against that team. They've got to scrap that. But obviously, the other leagues at the minute can't compete with the Premier League, as Tobias is saying. And he's doing everything right. They played the game over in Saudi Arabia, didn't they? The Real Madrid-Barcelona game. They are very wary. They didn't need this window to tell them. They've been planning this, certainly in Spain, about how to catch up and get some more money into their leagues because, they just can't keep up with England. And it's obviously not slowing up, is it? Because anyone who has money, you've got to spare a couple of billion quid and you're lying around, you're probably going to try and buy a Premier League club.
Well, here's the thing. We haven't even seen the two biggest clubs who are available for purchase sell just yet.
Yeah,
and the people who come in and buy those aren't going to be looking at Todd Bowley going, oh, you're going to outdo me here.
Yeah, let's try and get our agency licenses, because there's plenty of deals that are
I think there's a good idea. I think that's the best idea you've had.
Yeah.
Got to get some fax machines going here.
Yeah.
Right. 5:30 kickoff, Newcastle against West Ham. Newcastle are cruising at the moment, but they just need to keep this up now for a few weeks. This is a tricky period where it's easy for them to get carried away about being in the cup final. But if they can just keep routinely winning these fixtures 1-0 or 2-0 or 3-1, happy days.
Yeah, they're just so hard to beat. Actually, I thought they were really poor against Southampton the other night, but they could afford to be because they had the cushion. They had the two early goals. Shea Adams then scores a great goal, and you're thinking, if Southampton can get the next goal, who knows? And Adam Armstrong had a great chance, but once again, Nick Pope came up with the save. They're not scoring enough goals. Callum Wilson hasn't come back from the World Cup in good form. Isak is obviously just coming back in. He actually went off the other night. Bruno Guimaraes is suspended for this game. So West Ham will make it tough for them.
Anthony Gordon get in the team?
Possibly. It depends what they want to do in midfield. The thing, when you watch them, Joelinton and Joe Willock both play on the left hand side and they seem to interchange. One goes into the front three, one drops into the midfield three, and they do it throughout games, and it seems to cause a bit of confusion for opposition defenders. But Guimaraes is going to be a big miss for them, and they've got a few tough games coming up. Their
strength and depth obviously hasn't been established over a number of seasons just yet, so they
let John Joe Shelby go. He actually got his standing ovation at half time in that game, whereas Anthony Gordon was brought on before the game. But John Joe Shelby got a really nice reception off the Newcastle fans because they remember that he was there when they went down and they came back up, and he was key to that. But they could do with maybe having someone like John Joe Shelby to deal with the loss of Bruno Guimaraes for the next few games. But it's a game that I don't see them losing, but I don't know if they'll win it.
Yeah, they've had a few of these 0-alls over the course of the season, and look, that's just the stage of evolution they're at, where you can't chalk them down for an automatic win for a game like this. And West Ham fighting for their lives and fighting for the manager's job. It's a little bit of an upswing recently. Some of their better players starting to score goals, which is what they need. David, what do you make of the whole Anthony Gordon thing? Is he a first teamer at Newcastle at this stage, or is he somebody who's going to come on and influence the last 15-20 minutes of games?
Well, I mean, he's kind of like similar to Sam Maximan, who's had to bide his time and come off the bench for an impact. So I imagine Gordon will be the same. Ironically, they also signed Harrison and Ashby at Newcastle from West Ham, and I played with his dad Barry at Watford, and it will hurt West Ham because they're meant to be the sort of academy of football where you bring all these top talents through, and suddenly because you're not playing them, you lose them. So they've lost a few down the years, West Ham, and Ashby looks like he's going to be. Look, he's got Kieran Trippier in front of him, but the irony is obviously they're coming up against West Ham, and they just took one of their players. Look, I think Eddie's done a great job there. They're built on that back four in the defence. They flood the flanks. They try and get loads of balls in the box. I mean, that back three for West Ham is going to be peppered tomorrow. Make no mistake. And they've signed some really good players. And I think the loss of probably, Shelby, I think is negated a little bit because Bruno will be back in a game or two, whatever it is, couple of games. I agree. Wilson could need a goal, but they've got Isaac coming on. They're in a really good place at the minute, and it's going to be a difficult game for West Ham.
All right, Forest against Leeds is next on our list here. Forest, another one of those who have basically done what Chelsea did, except in a couple of windows.
They're signing players even after the window's closed. I mean, that's how many players Forest are signing. But this is a massive game because they've got their form together and their home form has been key. I never fancied them to beat Manchester United in the League Cup, and that was purely down to something that David touched on earlier, the lone player, Dean Henderson, who's injured now, but at the time of the draw was made, I knew he couldn't play. And there's such a drop-off with Forest when Wayne Hennessy plays and Dean Henderson plays. Obviously, Keylor Navas has been brought in now.
Keylor Navas?
I know.
Forest.
But that just illustrates where the Premier League is at now, where Forest are signing these players. Keylor Navas, I mean...
He's pretty good.
He's got a few medals in his pocket, and massive game in terms of Leeds. Obviously, have got a few decent cup wins. They drew 0-0 with Brentford in their last league game, but I just feel that they're always one defeat away from get rid of Jesse Marsh. Even though I think they've done okay in the transfer window, they brought in some good players. I thought signing McKennie that was a good idea.
They've invested, and it looks like there's a long-term plan there, and they'll have billionaire owners from America, it looks like, as well. So what do you think, David?
Well, I mean, I was asked this week who might go down, and I mentioned Leeds. Well, it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. They might go down. Obviously, they could because they're one of those teams. But I don't know. Rodrigo's out now for a couple of months. I think that is a big blow. Obviously, McKennie coming in it softens that a little bit. But I think I think they're going to be in a relegation battle. Make no mistake. I think they are. Look, great that Bamford's back. I thought it was excellent in the cup. They scored some great goals. They had this issue about Harrison possibly leaving. If that was a way to get a new contract, bloody hell, did he? He went to the ends of the earth to get it if he did. So anyway, it seems like it might have worked out in his favour. But saying that, I think I'd fancy them away from home against Forest. I would, but I think they've got a tough few months ahead without Rodrigo, that's for sure.
The relegation battle is really, really interesting because they've all invested so much money, and a tiny run of form catapults you from bottom of the table to 12th.
Yeah, which is what Forest have done. They've 2 wins, 2 draws in the last 4 league games, and they've gone up a few places.
They're in 13th at the moment.
Yeah, and they're ahead of Leeds. Then
they're only 6 points clear of Southampton or bottom.
Yeah, and Southampton have brought in players, and at times the other night you could see they're quite a young team, Southampton, but so if they can get a bit of confidence together, they could go on a run. Bournemouth signing players as well, where again it shows what the Premier League or where it is now, that Bournemouth are able to bring in certain types of players. And yeah, I definitely think that Leeds will be looking over their shoulders for the next few months. They've got 2 games against United coming up as well, just the way it's worked out, 2 games in the space of a week. Yeah,
at this time of the season, not when you want them. David, what was your answer to that question about who's going down?
I think if I had to, which I'm terrible at this stuff, so don't, but I can't see Southampton getting out of it, and I can't see Bournemouth getting out of it, and I think Leeds will be sucked in, but I'll probably be completely wrong. So yeah, I know Southampton signed a lot of players. I think that Nathan's got a big job on his hands because he hasn't managed at this level. It's unforgiving level, the quality in the top part of the pitch. If anything happened to Shea Adams, I think they'd be absolutely in trouble because they can't score. I think Sean Dyche will get Everton out of it. So I think it might. I think I just got a feeling that if Leeds don't, without Rodrigo, I think it's going to be difficult.
There is a world in which it's Everton, West Ham, and Leicester, and you're like, what? I mean, 3 teams who we're all thinking, we're going to qualify for the Europa League. We could be the team that cracks the Champions League. And it's like, no, sorry, Championship. Here you come, folks. We've one last fixture to talk about. Maybe the best to last. It's Spurs versus Manchester City. What do you expect from this?
Well, Conte's not going to be there, so I don't know, David, you might have better insight on this. You've seen the influence Conte has on the sideline. He's very much a manager that likes to almost control the game from the sideline. He's not going to be there. With Manchester City, we keep expecting them to go on this run. Now, they obviously knocked Arsenal out of the FA Cup, but funnily enough, actually watching that game, I felt more confident about Arsenal winning the league after watching that game, even though they lost. Because they didn't go full 11. City went closer to full 11. And Arsenal at times looked like they just had too much energy for City. But I just can't commit to writing City off. It's City. So I'm expecting them to turn up on Sunday, beat Spurs. They've got Arsenal then in a couple of weeks. And then the games are going to be coming thick and fast. And that's when their experience will kick in.
Well, they had that great game. They had that great game against them, didn't they? Not, just a few weeks back, where
the 4-2.
Spurs, where Spurs were absolutely flying, weren't they? And then Pep, I think, admittedly after said he basically ripped into them, and then second half they were just incredible. So, but look, Danjuma coming in is a good signing for them. I think a really good signing. He did brilliantly over at Villarreal. Son grabbed a couple against Preston as well. So, I mean, if you got Harry Kane, whenever we touch on Tottenham, if you don't touch on Harry Kane, like his goal against Fulham, was just absolutely exceptional. The way he knows himself around that box. Look, whether he feels, if I'd have gone to Man City like Haaland for 100 million, or when that move nearly came off, it didn't come off. What sort of silverware would I have? But if you've got him, you have absolutely, got a chance. But I think Haaland's going to have the better of him, and I'm sure he looks on enviously, thinking, if I was in that side, maybe what would have been. But his goal against Fulham was absolutely brilliant.
Does the Cancelo thing give you any pause for anything? Is it just that happens in football, particularly at that level, or is there any concern that, so Zinchenko's gone, Cancelo's gone, 2 of the lads who you knew could come in and do that role and be a midfielder even though they're a fullback?
Well, let's hope, because sometimes I've got to be honest, right? It annoys me when I see pundits fawn over Guardiola, because they do. Everything he does, they think is the right thing. The team he selects, I forget the game he played where Grealish started as sub. And before the game, they're all going, what a great decision, fawning over everything, Guardiola. He can't do any wrong. And you think, well, there's no analysis here of actually Guardiola. He does fall out of his players an awful lot. And I love it that Zinchenko has gone, you know what? Oh, great, I'll go. And now he's doing brilliantly at Arsenal. I hope Cancelo does as well. I think he assisted the other night, didn't he? Put a great ball to the back post. So I'm not saying he's going to come unstuck here, but, there is more to a football career than just hanging around with necessarily Guardiola's opinion. So I hope Cancelo goes on and does really well. But they had a falling out. Guardiola seems to have that with a lot of his players. We saw that with Aguero, whereas even Aguero's dad was saying, it was crocodile tears from Guardiola. So I'm all for players, going off and going and proving wrong and doing well, and certainly Zinchenko's done that.
You might need Cancelo over the course of the rest of the season. No,
maybe, yeah.
He can play left or right. I think. Are you talking about the Chelsea game, David, where he got it so wrong in the first half, and apparently that's where the falling out with Cancelo kind of really.
He whipped him off because he got the wrong formation.
But he played Cancelo as a right winger that day, and Chelsea had the better of the first half, and then he obviously brings on Grealish and Mahrez in the second half, and they combine.
Was it the United game? I think it was the United game. I think it was the United game where it was 0-0 at half time, and then Grealish came on for Phil Foden.
Oh, and
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Okay, yeah, and then obviously Grealish scores, yeah.
Grealish scored, yeah.
Interesting times. Let's wait and see exactly what happens. Are you both predicting a Man City win, notwithstanding everything we've said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
both on the fence a little bit about that.
Like it could be a draw, and then like Arsenal could be sitting pretty. You would imagine they'll build on their lead, so the pressure is on City then 4:30 on Sunday.
It's getting interesting. It's definitely getting interesting. My thanks to David Connolly and to Phil Egan for joining us on this week's episode of the Football Kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on notifications, and then when we go live every Friday at 11:30, you can sit there at work sneakily watching us. It's what everybody wants. See you next week.
The Football Kickoff.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.